Uh, Everybody should be muted, and if you need to ask a question, by all means do that, but either raise your hand or do like Ed did, and I won't be able to see you, but James probably will, Jim, and he can interrupt me and we can answer questions. I've got a PowerPoint, and tonight it shows how to use HDPE to make pin blanks. You can make anything out of it if you have enough of it and a big enough oven. So let me get started here. I'm going to share my screen. That's the way I want it. Okay. Recycling HDPE and high density polyethylene, also known as HDPE. It's a plastic they used making jugs and bottles for short-term storage. That came off the internet. In the bottom of all your plastic, you should see a little recycle triangle like you see on the left there. If it's a 2, then it's HDPE, and that's what we're using tonight. Or you could even see the 2 on the other side, on the right-hand side, down at the. Can you see my arrow, my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, good. So HDPE is recyclable number 2, and you can find HDPE everywhere. Here's milk jugs, HDPE. Here's a cutting board, and some of them have a rough surface on it or a textured surface. The other side is smooth. You cut. My wife uses those strictly for meat, chicken, and stuff like that because it can be washed off and not absorbed into a wooden cutting board. Trash bags. Some trash bags are plastic bags are HDPE, but you have to look for something specific. You have to look for that number 2 on there. This bag right here is just representative of other bags that could be HDPE. Because I've got these plastic bags in my shop and I don't see any 2 on them. So yes, some plastic bags are HDPE. You can, Home Depot buckets are HDPE. Lowe's buckets are HDPE. Tide, you'll see me use a Tide bottle. That's HDPE. And Folgers, you'll see an example of the Folgers red can that I used. Even HEB bags are HDPE because down in the corner, you see the little 2 with a recycled 2. And so you can use that. You'll see an example of that blank made out of HEB bags. What can be made from HDPE? Well, we're talking about pin blanks, but this guy made a mallet that's probably indestructible. Here's someone else on Pinterest did HDPE, I guess, bags or trash can bags or something and made a wreath. Now that's going to take a whole lot more time than what I would want to do. I'll leave that to my wife. So you make, even pens you can make out of HDPE. This one, who knows where this HDPE came from. It's just a slim line and looks pretty nice. You have to cut the pieces into smaller pieces. You can't just put a Tide bottle or a Folgers coffee can in a small toaster oven. That's what I use in my shop. I guess I could use it in the oven in the kitchen, but I wouldn't be able to sleep here tonight. And I have used the bandsaw to get it broken down into smaller things. Then I use a pair of scissors. This is very tiring on your hands because some of the scissors, most of the scissors, even tin snips that I have are difficult on my hands because the cutting it by hand. Here's a $3.50 blender that I bought at Goodwill, and I cut the pieces up and throw it in there. It is cracked at the bottom. That's why someone gave it away. But so I put some duct tape around it. But we took some stuff to Goodwill last week, and there was a small little food processor there on the floor. I almost asked if I could have it, but my wife said no, they probably wouldn't let me have it. But that probably would work good. So next time Goodwill is open, I'll be My wife goes quite a bit, and I go with her sometimes. I'll look for a little food processor. And here's some Tide bottle on the left-hand side there. That jar is full of small pieces of cut up, and you can see down toward the bottom of the jar, little bitty tiny pieces down in here. The blender did that. The blender did some of this also. This is from a, I don't remember what that's from. That could be, I don't know what it's from, but here's a Clorox bottle halfway cut up, and that'll be a pretty nice pin blank, just pure white. There are labels on it, like you'll see here in this video, a Tide label. It's actually turned out to be paper. I've tried to get rid of those labels because from doing real quick, down and dirty blank out of HEB bags, you can see the printing on it. Now that's probably going to turn away because it's on the top, but anything that's in that bag, you'll see in the blank. So if you want a pure yellow, then I'm going to show you, I just put a sanding disc in the drill press, and I'm going to sand off that label, which turned out to be paper. I've used, my wife said WD-40, that doesn't work. I've done denatured alcohol, that doesn't work. I've used mineral spirits, that doesn't work. The only thing I haven't tried, don't have any, is lacquer thinner or maybe carburetor cleaner. That might do it, but that's liable to melt the plastic. So I decided, well, I'll just try to put a sanding disc in here. This is 150 grit. You could probably go up a little bit to 80 grit or 100 grit, and it might go a little bit faster, but it really doesn't go too fast. I mean, too slow. You should not be able to hear anything. I erased the audio track, and you just stay after it, and then move your hands real fast. And you get most of it. I'll bring this up a little bit later. Notice that that side where I sanded is kind of white instead of yellow. Apparently the yellow can is, and also, yeah, the yellow can is more white on the inside than it is on the outside. More yellow on the outside, a little bit whiter on the inside, light colored. So it's a two-tone yellow. Down on this side over here, this jug, maybe it's this side right here, there's a kind of a clear window that you could look at to see how much you have left in there. You'll see that in a minute. Here's that blank from HEB bags. Notice the printing that you can see on the right-hand side. So if you want that in there, leave it in. If you want to take it out, then you would just cut around all the words on the HEB bag. And I don't have a video on how I did this blank. This was kind of a test. And I had about 10 or 12 bags. I got the first one, got the oven heated up, and put 3 bags in there that were knotted up into a ball about that big, a little bit smaller than a baseball, and put it in there. They melt really fast. Then take the tray out and kind of combine them together, and take the next bag and wrap it around there and put it back in, and just keep wrapping it around, kneading it. You'll see that in a minute. And that's what it came out, looked like. Here's the oven I use. It's $9 at Goodwill. I put it on 400 because I don't think the thermometer is real accurate. Anything beyond 400, the parchment paper that you'll see in that tray, it'll start, it doesn't burn, but you can smell it getting hot, and it turns brown, and you might see that in a minute. So the bottom right-hand corner, you just turn it from off to bake, let it warm up, and put your stuff in there. There's the thermometer, or the thermostat, what do you want to call it. These are 2 blanks from Curtis, and they're there only to show you this big blob of white HDPE. That's milk cartons, the old milk cartons, and that's cut up and put in there, and it turned out white. I do have one white blank I'll show you that didn't turn out real well, but because I stopped turning it, I'll show you why. So that's a pretty big blob there. I probably will heat that up again and get a flat spot on it so I can run it in the table saw or the bandsaw to get it into a square blank. By the way, any droppings that you make from a table saw or a bandsaw, if you collect them all, you can use them. Here's a mold that cracked on me, but it still works. It's just made out of melamine so that the HDPE won't stick to it. And that board on top is a plunger that fits down in there. And this is about the size. I mean, I measured this, the length of the blank that Chris made. I dropped it down in there, and actually I cut this down from another version to better fit a blank that you would buy from Eugene. And the piece of wood up there is just a plunger. You put it, you force it down in the form, and then you put the plunger in and force it down in there, and it squeezes everything out and makes the shape. And here's the shape. That's a little bit oblong, so I use too much HDPE. So probably I'm going to put this in a bandsaw and square it up, and then the waste off the bandsaw I'll use again. I don't know there's any scientific way of knowing exactly how many Clorox bottles will do a pin blank, a square pin blank. I don't plan on doing a whole lot of this scientific stuff. I'll just cut it in the bandsaw and keep going. I have a bucket full of different kinds of HDPE. It's just screwed together, and that's one of the fallacies of melamine. It's non-stick for the most part, but it actually splits really bad. So there's a way around it. All of these were made. All these blanks are made on that form right there, a split. There's the plunger that's down in the mold, just hanging there. There's the bottom part of it. Now that's solid wood on the bottom, and it doesn't seem to stick on the solid wood. So my next version 2 will be, or actually it'll be version 3 will be out of solid wood. But as I was thinking about this, I would love to go to a aluminum billet and cut it on the bandsaw and polish it, and then put it together with machine screws, and so that I could take one of the sides off and reuse it each time. I might get the blank out of there easier. But there's a secret to getting the blank out.
Robert,
here's a video of me just starting out. My oven is there on my Performex sander, and it's plugged in. And I'm just taking some of this orange stuff and piling it in there. The oven is already heated up. So the tray right there is not warm yet, but you definitely need gloves because this stuff gets hot. Even thick leather gloves, you'll feel it through there if you don't keep moving it around in your fingers. I'm moving real slow because I was dizzy that day. Okay, that's the end of the video, but let's see. Next, here I came in from the other side of this screen. Something's flashing on my screen. Stand by. Nope. So that first batch, just piled up in there. I've got my gloves on, and I'm gonna go get it out of the oven. It's very hot. I always try to keep the door closed to keep the heat in. And it's sticky. And you just stick it on each other, sort of like just Play-Doh.
Robert, I think Gordon has a question.
Go ahead, Gordon. Unmute, Gordon. Unmute. Unmute.
Spacebar one more time, Gordon.
I just was curious, for a mold, would that stuff work in a PVC tube? Does HDPE stick to PVC?
Good question. I don't know. That
Make a nice round blank, then.
Yeah, it would.
Square one.
Yeah. You could put a plunger in. You'd have to. Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay.
So all I did was take the tray out of the oven. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I've got some more. I'm just going to shove down in there. That's cooling off pretty fast, so it's you're not going to get a whole lot of big pieces in there. But it's ready to go. Go back in the oven. So I hear somebody's background. And here I'm going to take that one out. And I've got a pile of it ready to go. I'm just going to shove it down into those pieces, get them to stick. They stick fairly easily when it's hot. It'd be nice to have a hot metal tray right here to put it on. It'll keep the blob warmer longer. And I leave it in there probably 5 minutes, sometimes 10. If you have a real hot temperature, like over 400 degrees, more than 5 minutes, it'll really start turning the parchment paper brown. And if parchment paper turns brown, it's very brittle, it'll break, and then your HDPE will stick to that aluminum tray and you're not going to get it off. It's very difficult to get it off. Okay, so I'm ready to take it out again. Poor editing here. Now, when I got a blob like that with the HEB bags, I just got another bag and just wrapped it around it and kind of tucked it in like you're making a bed, and put it back in there, and it melts really fast because it's so thin. So my theory is the smaller the pieces, the quicker it will melt. But the smaller the pieces are, like you can see right here, these small pieces, they are really kind of a pain to work with. You can see that paper getting a little bit brown right now. And this has been 15 minutes or so. Chris raised his hand.
Yes.
Oh, that's HDPE. That's a kind of like a pen blank. Can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Try to unmute up from your end, Chris. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so what I was saying is you could use that to take that one side off you were talking about without having to remove screws.
Yeah.
Wing nuts on there. That's it.
Well, if I did a lot of this and wanted to really get after it, I'd probably have 2 ovens or maybe a bigger oven. Where I'd put it, I don't know. And then keep the mold warm and just keep If the food processor works better than the blender was $3.50 and it ran. That's why I bought it, thinking it was going to be the thing, but it's not. The food process, if it works really well, a whole lot better, than I might go into making these. We have plastic bags all over the place. I used to have a trash can, a big 55-gallon trash can full of HDPE bottles, Clorox, shampoo, all kinds of stuff. I don't know the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 or whatever that is, but the internet would probably tell us what it is. I was thinking maybe Coke bottles or something like that, but it doesn't have a number on the bottom. I could try it sometime, but I might mess up the oven and then waste $9. Okay, I'm getting ready. Sometimes I'll use a hammer, this mallet, to kind of force the bubbles out. That's the problem. You got to get the bubbles out, or in your turning you'll have a bubble. So the more you knead it like bread, like this, the better off you are. I did have a video of, see there, I'm playing around with that. See that white spot in there? I didn't know what that was. It didn't look like parchment paper. So I dug in there to see what it was. That's that sight glass on the side of the bottle to tell you if you're getting empty of whatever's in there. This could be a different kind of Tide or something like that. I don't know what this bottle was. I cut this stuff up probably 6 months ago. Some of those big oblong, weird shaped bottles, really, I can't cut them with a pair of scissors. They're too thick, especially around the neck opening. So I use a bandsaw and get it into smaller pieces, and which is dangerous, but you get them cut. If you do a Lowe's bucket, which is blue, or you do a Home Depot, which is orange, you're going to have to use a saber saw or a bandsaw to get that cut. You're not going to be able to cut that with a 10 snips or a pair of scissors.
Albert,
So go ahead.
can you melt this stuff down to where it's a pourable state?
No,
Okay,
no, I think it'll burn before it does that.
okay.
Randy, unmute and ask your question. Look down in the, okay, go ahead. Now I can hear you.
So some of the thinner stuff, I wonder if you could run it through a paper shredder and really get it cut up pretty small.
Yeah, you might be able to do that. It's got to be a pretty hefty size paper shredder. That, if you get them in pieces like that, that might be easier to corral and put into the shape, into the oven, smaller, and put it into the pile inside the oven. Now I have seen on YouTube a guy that takes the dust and stuff from a bandsaw. I don't know how he's making it, but he'll pile that into a little pile, looks like flour almost, or granules of salt, and he puts that in there, and it kind of seems like it melds together easier than what I'm doing right here, although this works. So next time what I'll do is cut up a Lowe's bucket into strips about 3/4 of an inch long and maybe 7 inches long, and lay them on top of each other in the oven and melt them together that way instead of pieces like this. You have to just realize that this stuff starts cooling down really fast. Once you get it in the mold, about 5 minutes, you can take it out. It's still really hot to handle, but 15 minutes you can touch it with your hand, no problem. And it will shrink. You'll see it here in a minute. I tried to take it out of the mold too soon. I got it out and it worked okay, but if the second one I did later today, just dropped out because I left it in there about 15 or 20 minutes, and the stuff shrinks as it cools down. And so it take the plunger out and it just boop, drops right out.
Isn't that a good thing?
That is a good thing. Because I took this one out, this orange one out, and I had to pry like heck. In fact, you'll see me take this out of the mold, and I should have waited a little bit longer.
Robert, we're still looking at the
Oh,
orange chips.
you can't see this?
We don't know what this is.
Oh, okay.
Do you need to close PowerPoint or?
Okay, here it's coming out of the oven and I'm gonna go put down in the mold. I got my bench vise there and I'm gonna use that to push the plunger down in there. And I forgot to turn the camera on when I made the orange one, so I went and used some yellow, and you'll see me get it out of the mold. Actually, you won't see me get it out of the mold. You'll see me just put it in there. You got to work fast, and this stuff is hot. Now, since the side is cracked, I'm going to use some C-clamps. You see the marks on that plunger on the side? That's the problem I had getting the other one out. This one I'm going to leave in for 15 or 20 minutes and it just fell out. I did not film that though. So if you had a good quality mold, then you could get it set quicker. It's cooling off like crazy right now because the melamine is cool. So it's just taking the heat right out of it. Now, the good thing about this stuff is that if you didn't plunger it well enough or far enough, you just take it out and put it back in the oven and add some more to it. Okay, so that yellow piece is going to stay in there for 15 or 20 minutes. And then I came inside and sat down for a while because I just needed to get off my feet. And I said, oh, it's still in the mold out there. So I went and took it out of there and it just fell out. I didn't have my camera with me. I have the yellow piece here you'll see in a minute. Now, I think this is the orange one. See how I'm beating up the side there? And I didn't leave this orange one in long enough. What I didn't video with the orange one was putting it in the mold. See how it squeezed out the side there? I've never had this much problem getting it out. All you need is a bigger hammer. I raise up one side and the other side drops back down in there. So It's sticking on there pretty good because it went up the sides, I believe. And it's still pretty hot. So there's the blank, but it needs to be trimmed. And I just walked away to take a close-up picture of it. I don't think I put it in here. But those wings, oh, there it is. There's that a white window, I'm calling it, on the side of the jar to let you know how much you have in the can and the jar. And so now I'm going to take it over to the bandsaw. There it is right there, the white window. That's probably going to be turned away, so it won't be a big deal. And you notice that it's orange and then a little bit lighter orange. The lighter orange is the inside of the bottle, and the the darker orange is the outside. And it's the same with the yellow. Here it is, example. On the left is the outside, on the right is on the inside. It's a little bit more white. No wisecracks, okay? I'm using a bandsaw.
When we get the video, we'll show you how you do it.
Okay. Oh, that's.
I got a piece going down into the blade guard or blade, whatever that is, insert. Still just a little bit hot.
Okay, bye. What's this? What's this?
So the longer it sits, the harder it gets.
Yes. And those scraps right there, I'll put them in my bin. I'll use them again. So wait about 15 minutes to remove the mold. You can bandsaw to final shape. Randy has his hand up.
I was just going to say it looks like a creamsicle.
A creamsicle.
Dreamsicle, like the old orange and white ice cream lollipops.
Oh,
What you talking
Never mind.
about?
Never mind.
Yeah, my question or comment was this was a Clorox bottle, so I'm wondering if the inside got bleached a little bit. That's why it's a lighter color.
no, this isn't a Clorox bottle. Clorox is white all the way through. This is a Tide detergent bottle, I think.
Okay.
And there's a blue bottle too. What is that, like fabric softener or something? It's kind of white on the inside. So there must be, in their manufacturing, they must use the white. Maybe it's a lesser grade of HDPE. They don't have to spend the money to dye it yellow or blue or whatever. I don't know. I'm guessing. So wait 15 minutes at least and then remove from the mold. Like I say, this yellow one I'll show you in a minute was in there about 15 minutes. It just fell right out. Bandsaw to final shape, and you can drill it and glue it. Now I use CA glue, but there is a special HDPE glue that you can buy, and it's not cheap. But the pins I've made with the HDPE, and used CA glue, it worked okay. It worked just fine. They're still together. So did you see that in AAW magazine where some guy puts his pin tubes on the mandrel on the lathe, turns the lathe on, and uses sandpaper to rough them up? So there are some manufacturers that are selling them already roughed up. But if you have blanks that aren't, that's a good way of doing it, because it is a pain to do that by hand.
It is.
Then you trim the tube just like you would do a normal pin down to the length of the tube. I mean, trim the blank to the length of the tube. That's what that should say. And then you turn the blank and finish it. And I think it'll finish all the way with micro mesh and maybe some plastic polish, and it would not need a CA finish. Okay, here is a Clorox bottle that I made at did this demo a couple years ago at the club. And you can see right here, that's where the air bubble was, nice, clean, shiny sides. And then this right here is probably a tear out. So what I need to do is to get some of that white and heat it up, a little bubble of it, and shove it down in that hole and see if that'll fix it. The red one is Folger's coffee can, and it's going to turn out pretty nice, I think, if I cover up that hole right there with, we don't drink Folgers anymore in that can. So I might try to maybe just put the clip, the shirt clip over that hole. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I was excited about that. I like that red. It's going to be very distinctive. Maybe just fill it with CA. I don't know. Or come to your house and rob your Folgers coffee can. Can you see this blank?
Yeah.
Okay, here's that orange one, and let's see if you can. It's too bright.
That's too bright.
You can see the different shades of orange in here. That's the one that I had a hard time getting out of the mold. It's a little bit oblong shape. And I forgot to film putting this in the mold, so I did it again using Tide bottle, and that's what this is. And it's got the yellow and white also. And it's a little bit too much because it's not square, it's oblong, but you can cut it square and still use the cutoff. Did I show you this one? This is the HEB. You saw the photograph of it. You can see the writing that's still on the bag. And in this case, it's probably going to turn away because it's right there on the surface. But that's gonna make a nice little pin. Somebody's going to ask what that is. I thought, it's HEB bags. And here's that pin blank. As you got a better picture of it. I really wanted to have a background. I wanted to turn, but the last 2 days I've been incapacitated. I wanted to do two things. I wanted to at least turn this pin right here. This is the HEB bag, and then film another where I'm taking some wet wood and doing a peeling cut with a skew, and just chips flying everywhere, and use that as a background on my Zoom. But I haven't got there. If I do turn this, say tomorrow or Saturday or Monday, we'll be in, we'll be out in 2021, I think, out of our homes. I might video it and just show you what it looks like, or at least take a picture of it and put it on the website. It's been a week and nobody has sent me anything to put on the website. So I'm going to pressure you to do that. Do you have any questions on what I've done so far?
It looks very interesting. It's kind of a low-end type of casting.
Yep. And it's kind of fun because if you get someone's attention, where'd you get that pin? Oh, I made it out of HEB bags. Home Depot, I think those bags are HDPE. But you go to Dairy Queen, or not Dairy Queen, Whataburger, those bags are all recyclable something that doesn't have a 2 on there. And I'm not going to, there's too many things with HDPE around that I can use instead of experimenting on a Whataburger bag. Although the orange and white would probably look pretty nice. So Ed, unmute yourself and what.
I was wondering, have you tried higher temperatures? You said it had a problem with smoking or catching fire or what?
Yeah, on this yellow one, I wanted to speed it up. So the final heat up before I put it in the mold, I went up to about 450 on that oven for 5 minutes, and the smell is not bad, but you could smell. My wife came out to the garage to check on me and said, something's burning. Well, it's just that parchment paper and the smell of this. It's not bad. You can still be in the same room. It's not like burning wood. But at 450, it seemed like the parchment paper underneath got crispy brown. And I had a hard time picking up all the pieces to throw in the garbage.
Okay.
So
I just didn't know if it gave you more mold time.
yeah, I just leave it in the oven longer.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
maybe some of these YouTube channels will tell you how many minutes you got to leave them in there, 12 minutes or, whatever.
Does anybody have any questions for Robert or any kind of questions about the club or anything?
I was planning on making about 15 or 20 blanks out of HDPE and putting them in the raffle, but I skated on that one.
Next month, we'll have our demo by Cindy DeRosa. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just bring some HEB bags for the raffle next time. Forgot to tell you that there are guys that are chopping up this stuff really fine and getting yellow and red and blue and sprinkle them down and building up 3/8 of an inch or whatever and making cutting boards like that. And they're perfectly safe to use as a cutting board. My wife has a small one. If she has one tomato to slice, she'll use that one instead of the big one. And we've got cutting boards all over this house.
Well done. Well done.
Thanks, Mr. Schonert.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, who was that?
Yay.
So